the board's September 14th meeting to order. Joy, can I have the roll?
Mr. Beveridge?
Here.
Mr. Boyd? Mrs. Felter? Mr. Geary?
Here.
Mr. McCune? Ms. Schultz?
Here.
Mr. Wycliffe?
Here.
All right, and we will go straight into public hearing to consider exceeding the revenue neutral rate. Is there anyone here that would like to speak or have any questions for us? If not, we will close that hearing and we will open the budget public hearing. And again, if there's anyone here that would like to speak or ask any questions, and if not, I will close that regular meeting or return to the regular meeting. And now we are on to the revenue neutral tax rate resolution. I don't believe we have any discussion about this unless we have questions. Otherwise, I'll entertain a motion.
I'd move to approve the adoption of a resolution authorizing the district to exceed the revenue neutral rate for financing the annual budget for 2021-22 as presented.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Geary, second by Ms. Schultz.
Ms. Schultz?
Yes.
Mr. Geary?
Yes.
Mr. Beveridge?
Yes.
Mr. Wycliffe?
Yes.
All right, on to 3.02, approval of 21-22 budget. Mr. Hutchinson?
Yeah, just have a few brief comments just to reframe, since this has been a several-month process coming to the adoption of the budget. We did our formal notifications of both required hearings and have affidavits that they were published on Friday the 3rd, 10 days prior to tonight. The key assumptions around this budget, once again, are that we're gaining about 678 students over last year, but our funding is still based on 2 years ago, so it's really only a funding increase of about 21 students, mainly in 4-year-old at risk, because you get 2 years back plus whatever your current 4-year-old at risk is. We build in some contingency, so in the event any of these weightings are higher than we had anticipated, we do a 10% what we call buffer in the weighting area so that we could maximize our funding. We had a 4.7% assessed valuation growth, and we're in that phase in of additional base aid. We went up $137 to $4,706. This is just a historical look. As you can see, it's currently on the rise. We have 1 more year of implementation, I believe, and then it goes to a CPI index annually after that. The other main considerations in the funding is that we wanted to maximize all of our state aid through LOB and capital outlay, so we did maximize capital outlay levy at 8 mils. Bond and interest is still lower than we had anticipated it being right now. It's at a decreased level from when we had our 2016 bond issue. We don't really have any additional ability to transfer salaries into capital outlay. Capital outlay is already needs additional revenue to meet all of the needs that we're trying to put in capital outlay. And that slowing student growth is finally arrived. Our BOTA is now going to start decreasing over the next 8 years. This just illustrates that. The board was wise not to utilize all of its BOTA in the previous years. Otherwise, it's just a deeper hole to dig out of. We are now at $19 million, which is your full authority to utilize. But in previous years, you had anywhere from $3 to $6 million that you did not utilize. Otherwise, we would have had to find that much more savings going forward. At the highest level, our maximum legal maximum budget has increased about $6.5 million over last year. That's really, kind of think of it as your operating budget. That's how much the increase is. On paper, it looks closer to $9.5 million because of the buffering we do. We add expenditures and revenue so that we can make sure that there's no surprises. If suddenly we had a new federal grant that we don't have to go republish our budget, we actually have it already built in there. This is fund by fund, the mill levy impact. As you see, overall, our levy is going to decrease a little over 1 mil. The only levy going up is special liability fund. We just need to replenish that fund due to some settlements. Why some of the reasons for the change is mainly it's the assessed valuation. As assessed valuation increases, usually levies roll back slightly, the ones that are required by a calculation. Some of them are within your purview, such as extraordinary growth, BOTA. You set that at your max or something less. We are using all of our maximum authority. You don't really have another place to go within any of our levies for additional funding. This is how the tax bill always appears. It's 3 lines, even though we have 8 levies. Once again, it'll show that 1 mil decrease. But that revenue neutral rate where you just passed the resolution to exceed it, if you look at the second column, it says FY 2022 neutral. The county provides us that rate and says that if we were to not raise an additional dollar through our levies, you would roll the rate back to 65.708, and we generate the same dollars we did last year. Our actual levy that we're going to recommend this evening is 68.108. So that looks like it's a 2.4 mil increase. The issue is you have no control over the 20 mils. That is by state statute must be 20. So you have in play about 1.3 to 1.4 mils that we're exceeding the revenue neutral rate. You could roll back the capital outlay levy. However, we need capital outlay revenue to support our expenditures. And all other funds really only is about 0.1 mil difference. It barely went up, but those are your 2 areas that are in your control. That equates to about $3.8 million of revenue, that exceeding rate, which we needed for our budget. Just to put it in perspective, we had that peak when we were opening some large schools, but we are slowly clicking down. That'll be forced down through BOTA for the next several years, regardless. But if we have any valuation growth, you're going to exceed the revenue neutral rate on the 20 mils always, because you must do it. And I can't roll you, and I cannot roll it back. So that's kind of the high-level summary. And if you adopt the budget tonight, then we will submit by September 20th to the agencies that we have to. Any questions?
Hey, Mr. Hutchinson, I'm sorry to bother you with this one, but we normally just do this once. We're doing this twice this time because kind of the
Why we're doing 2 hearings?
2 of them, yeah.
We used to do just a budget hearing to hear any questions regarding our budget. There's a new statute this year for that revenue neutral rate. If we're going to not roll back our levies, we have to have that resolution. We have to notify the county. The county will send a personalized letter or email next year to residents and let them know that financial impact. And then you have to hold a hearing to hear from the public and the opposition or ask questions. So it's become a 2-step process.
Okay.
And because of that mailing, our budgets are getting later and later. That's why the September 20th deadline, even though we're 2 months into school, we can't have this hearing before September 10th, I think. I have to look at the exact date.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? I know I asked at least half of this a couple months ago, but I was just going to ask again, revenue neutral rate, that does not include inflation. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And does that include growth in students?
It does not.
Okay. All right. If there's no other questions, I would entertain a motion.
I move to adopt the 2021-2022 budget as presented.
Second.
All right. Good.
Mr. Beveridge?
Yes.
Ms. Schultz?
Yes.
Mr. Gary?
Yes.
Mr. Whitcliff?
Yes.
All right. And on to 4.01, resolution to reimburse capital expenditures. Do you have any discussion on this, Mr.? No?
Just to mention, we do have the ability, if we proceed with a bond issue, to pay ourselves back for the Lindenwood building purchase. It's just you have to go on record wanting to do that within the next 15 days. We sort of have a time limit from the time you take possession of the building. Then we have up to 18 months to do a bond issue. But at least this will go on the record, and we'll have that flexibility as we plan a bond issue.
All right. If there's no questions, can I get a motion?
Move to approve a resolution declaring the intent of USD 233 Johnson County, Kansas, Olathe to reimburse certain capital expenditures with proceeds of tax-exempt bonds.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Whitcliff, second by Mr. Gary.
Ms. Schultz?
Yes.
Mr. Gary?
Yes.
Mr. Whitcliff?
Yes.
Mr. Beveridge?
Yes. All right. And with that, this meeting is adjourned.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I got some.